Kakadosh, Boker Or, Kinyan Masechta. We're going to do a very quick chazara from the bottom of Bet Amud on the bottom, and then we're going to continue forward. We said again, Rav Ashi had a contradiction. He had a question from Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Ashi Kashi Alei. He had a question to him. Rabbi Yehuda, from Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda. Umukim la lebraita. So he put the braita, he established the braita above, like Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. So what exactly was the contradiction? Umiyama Rabbi Yehuda, does Rabbi Yehuda say, right, bizman hazeh, holu mistaklim ba korim tal bizmana, that since nowadays we're only going to come and look at it in the proper time, right? How does that work? Right? So he says, urminhi, we have a contradiction. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, ematai. So now this urminhi is coming from the Mishnah later on in Hamud Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, ematai. When do we say that they're going to be lenient to come earlier, to do earlier 11, 12, 13, 14, right? The early days. Makom shenichnasim b'cheshirim chamishi. That is only if they're going to come in on Mondays and Thursdays. Aval makom shenichnasim b'cheshirim chamishi. But if they don't come in on Mondays and Thursdays, en korinot ala bizmana. They're only going to come and they're only going to read it, right? You're only going to read it in the proper time. Makom shenichnasim b'cheshirim chamishi. So that finished, by the way, that was the end quote of the Mishnah. So the end quote, en korinot ala bizmana. Yeah, you've got a pencil? You mark the end quote, put a start quote and a finish quote. By the way, you should know that's very important also to do by pesukim, because many times we have a pasuk and then afterwards we make a dirasha on the pasuk. So what you should do in your Gemara is you make the start quotes of the pasuk and the end quotes of the pasuk. So the same thing, we're bringing down a Mishnah or a Braita. You're going to start the start quotes and the end quotes. So it starts Amar Rabbi Yehuda. That's where it starts. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, the first word on the line. Amar Rabbi, the first word. It's on the fourth line. Yeah, the fourth line. Yeah, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. That's where it starts. That's the start quote, and then you're going to finish right where it says Ela Bizmana. So it's 3 lines down, right? Amar Rabbi Yehuda. End quote. Okay, that's where it finishes the Mishnah. So now he comes and he says, "We're making a diuk." What?
How can you understand it? How can you do?
You look in the Mishnah. No. You have to look in the Mishnah. That's the only way to know. Yeah? So the Gemara is going to be medayek, makom shenichnasim b'sheni v'chamishi mi'akarinan. So therefore we're making a diuk. What's a diuk? The diuk is, we're deducing. So it says, the place where we're going to go in on Mondays and Thursdays, we are going to read it. So that's a diuk. That means what? Vafilu bizman hazeh, even nowadays. So how could you tell me bizman hazeh that Rabbi Yehuda says, hoilu mistaklim ba'in korin utala bizmana? Ze lo nachon. We made a diuk from the next Mishnah that bizman hazeh, you do it, right? Even bizman hazeh. So says the Gemara. But
we do sheni v'chamishi.
Yeah, for sure. That means they're going to come in on sheni v'chamishi. They're going to do it even bizman hazeh. So says the Gemara. Umukim la braita Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, we're going to establish that the braita is going to be like Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, not the Mishnah, the braita. So the Gemara is going to ask, Umishum de kashe le Rabbi Yehuda, Umukim la braita Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So that's so easy. Well, anytime that you have a contradiction, just change the guy's name. That's an easy way out. Yeah? You got a contradiction. It wasn't that guy, it was somebody else. How do you do that? He says, what? Because it was difficult from Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to place the braita like Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. And so the Gemara, Ravashi shmiale deika detani like Rabbi Yehuda, deika detani like Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Ravashi, he heard some people that they were teaching it in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, and some people that were learning it in the name of Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, so now that he has a contradiction between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda, Amari, he said to himself, Man detani like Rabbi Yehuda, the one that said that it was Rabbi Yehuda was lav dafka, but the one that said it was Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, that is dafka. Okay, so basically what happened was like this, right? One more time. Let's zoom out. We've got a braita. The braita was what we just learned yesterday, where it said, right, Mitvei Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, Ematai bizman shashanim v'chule v'chule v'chule. Yeah, so this is going to be a braita. The braita is coming and telling us that nowadays, right, bizman hazeh en korin ota ela bizmana. That nowadays you're only going to read it in the proper time. So that was going to be a braita. We have a contradiction between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda from a braita to where? To the Mishnah. So therefore, since you have from the braita to the Mishnah, right? So therefore, what are you going to do? So therefore, he comes and he says, because we have a contradiction between a braita, right, and right, what he says over here and the Mishnah, we're going to say that the Braita was Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So we said, first of all, what's the contradiction? So we brought down the contradiction. The contradiction was is that the Braita says Bizmana Zeh on Korin Utal Bizmana, and the Mishnah says that when you go in on Mondays and Thursdays, you read it right earlier. So it's mashma that even nowadays you would do that. So therefore, that's a contradiction. So we answer no, it's Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara asks what? So easily you're just going to say it's Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda? Just like that? Yeah, you've got a contradiction. Just change the guy's name. No. It means that we're going to change the guy's name because at the end of the day, right, when we're going to come and we're going to say, right, that what? That since Rav Ashi heard it in the name of two different people, he went and he said one of them was Davka and one of them was Lav Davka. Okay? Fine. Let's see Rashi. Rashi is on the bottom of Bet Amud Aleph. Okay? So the previous page, the last line. Yeah, on the bottom. Kasha de Rabbi Yehuda, teha braita de le'el, ad Rabbi Yehuda tematznitin. The Rabbi Yehuda of the braita above, and Rabbi Yehuda of the Mishnah. So therefore, we already see what is the braita and what is the Mishnah. So here you have it. Here you have the braita and you have the Mishnah. Above, that was the braita. The Mishnah is going to be later on Hey Amud Aleph. So therefore, Rashi is already explaining to you where the stira is going to be from the braita de le'el and Rabbi Yehuda from the Mishnah. So therefore, the next page on the top left, ve'ukila leach braita, he placed this braita de le'el above Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Meaning, I didn't change Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. I changed Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, which was in the Braita. Okay, so in the Mishnah, it's still Rabbi Yehuda, right? And the other one is going to be Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Remember, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda in this chart was further down. He was the next generation. So here's Rabbi Yehuda, right, which is right before Rabbi, Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Now, during the generation of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, which is number 5, you're also going to have here Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so therefore, it's much easier to say that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda was the Braita. Okay, next, Ematai, right, the Mishnah. Meaning, technically speaking, I could already go to the Mishnah, right, and I could already see this in the Mishnah. Okay, so Ematai. What does that mean now? When are we going to say this? So he says like this. He says as follows. Ematai, right? Ematai magdimim. When are we going to do it earlier? Makom shenichnasim bimkom shebetin kavua v'akfarim nichnasim sham liyom adin ksheyesh lahem riv. So if you remember, this was Rashi l'shitato. You remember we learned in the previous daf that Rashi brought down that the kfarim nitkansim la'erot lamishpat, that they come into the villagers are going to come into the cities for judgment. Shebate dinin yoshim bayarot b'sheni v'chamishi ketakanat Ezra. The betins are always going to be in the cities on Mondays and Thursdays like takanat Ezra, and therefore they would come in. So the Rashi is going l'shitato, right? Rashi is going l'shitato that he comes and he says that they're coming into bedin kavua, and the kfarim, right, are coming in for the Yom Adin because they have arguments between each other or whatever it is. So they come and they go to bedin. Aval makom shenichnasim, but if they don't come in, it's not a kula for the kfarim. En korin ota ela bizmana. So you're only going to read it in the proper time. So ask the Gemara mishum de kashele bitmia. Bitmia, again, remember, whenever Rashi uses the word bitmia, bitmia means that it's a question. So therefore it's a question. Mishum de kashele de Rabbi Yehuda. He says, because of that, you're going to change the guy's name. So says the Gemara, right? Obviously, we don't say that. Okay? Nekuda. Okay, that's it. We finished the Rashis until here. Okay, next, 2 dots. Okay, we're talking about right now the Krachim and Kafun Choma from Yoshua Binun, that they're going to read it on the 15th of the month. Okay, so we're talking about the walled cities. They do it on the 15th. Okay, says the Gemara, Menahane Mile. Yeah, Menahane Mile. Where do we know these words from? Yeah. So how do we know this? So Amar Rava comes and he says, the Amar Kra, it's a pasuk. What is a pasuk exactly? Al kena Yehudim perazim yeshavim ba'arei perazot vegomer. So here you have the start quote, right after Damar Kra. I'm in the Gemara. Yeah, in the Gemara. Right? One more time. Krachim mukafim choma mimot Yoshua, right? Mimot Yoshua bin Nun. Right? Says the Gemara, Menah hanemile. Everybody has it? Yeah? Karate. Yeah? Everybody's with me or not? Says the Gemara. One more time. The two dots. Everybody has it? Two dots. Put your fingers on the place. Two dots. Krachim hamukafim choma mimot Yoshua bin Nun. We're talking about the walled cities. Those are the big cities which are walled. Hamukafim choma mimot Yoshua bin Nun, from the days of Yoshua bin Nun. Okay, they're going to read it on the 15th. Okay, says the Gemara, Mena hane mile. The word Mena hane mile, by the way, sometimes it could be in two words and sometimes it could be in three. Sometimes it writes out Mena hane mile, and sometimes it did it like what it does it here, that it's one word, Mena hane mile. But it's the same thing. Mena is from where? Hani, these, mile, words. From where are these words from? So Amar Rava comes and he says, to Amar Ka, it's a pasuk. Again, one more time. You're going to have the start quotes and the finish quotes. Start quotes is right here where the aleph is. Al ken, so you put two quotation marks. Al ken, hayudim perazim, hayoshavim ba'arei perazot, vegomer. Vegomer is like vechule. Vechule is in modern Hebrew. It means etc. So vegomer ze oto dovar, etc. Okay, so therefore, that's how you finish the pasuk. Look in the pasuk on the left side, Torah Ora Shalem. Left side, Torah Ora Shalem. You got the little aleph. Yotelamata. Where do you? Okay. Al ken hayudim haprazim yeshuvim ba'arei perazot nekuda. So that's with the end part, because the osim is already the etc. So therefore, in our Gemara, we only brought down half the pasuk because that's all we need. We don't need everything. Okay. So this is a pasuk in Megillat Esther. Esther tet yud tet. So it says, Al ken hayudim haperazim hayoshavim ba'arei perazot. So says the Gemara, mi the prazim pe'arba'asar, meaning, look in that pasuk. Everyone go back to the pasuk, right? Because the Gemara is going to make a deduction, which is already written in the pasuk. Look at the pasuk. Al ken hayudim haperazim hayoshavim perazot, osim et yom arba'asar lechodesh Adar. Simcha v'yishtav. There, what do the prazim do? The 14th. Yeah, everyone's with me. That means the prazim, the scattered cities. Right? Scattered cities. When are you doing it? On the 14th. So says the Gemara, mi the prazim be'arba'asar, from the fact that the prazim are going to be done on the 14th, mukafin, so the walled cities, b'chamisha asar, you're going to do it on the 15th. So that's the diuk. The diuk from the pasuk. The pasuk says mefurash that the prazim do it on the 14th. So the fact that the prazim do it on the 14th, so the walled cities are going to do it on the 15th. So ask the Gemara, the ema prazim be'arba'asar, mukafin klalu klalo. Why don't I say that the prazim is the 14th, right? Because it's written in the pasuk. I can't change that. But the mukafin, you don't have to do it at all. So says the Gemara, what? Velav Yisrael ninu. He says what? They're not Jews? What? Because they live in a walled city, they're not Jews? Or ve'od, and furthermore, another question. Mehodu ve'ad kush ktiv. It's written ve'hodu ve'ad kush, meaning we know that you have to read it. What? We have to read it from Hodu, one second. We have to read it from Hodu until Kush. So therefore, you have to say that the 15th are going to read it sometime. What's the Havamina to say that somebody that lives in a walled city is not going to read it at all? It doesn't make sense. So says the Gemara, you're right. That couldn't have been the question. Ve'ema prazim bar beisar, mukafin bar beisar u'chameisar. Right? He says, why don't I say that the prazim is on the 14th and the mukafin are on both? On the 14th and 15th. Right? So he comes and he says, right? Kidichtiv. One second. Kidichtiv, as it says in the pasuk, right? Kidichtiv. Where does it say that?
14, 15, it says, no?
What?
It doesn't say 14, 15?
The pasuk says 14 there. 14 over there. There it says 14. Right? In that pasuk, it's only 14.
No, but in the Megillah, somewhere beside this pasuk, it never says 15?
It does say 15. And therefore?
So, is that 14? Is that 15?
No, because that's what we're trying to understand. How do we know this? How do we know that there's going to be a difference?
But it says so.
It says, no. It says in the Megillah that there was a 14th was done in all the cities, and the 15th was done in Shushan in that year. I want to find out now for every single year. How do we do it? So in the Megillah, there's only one pasuk that speaks about the 14th. It does not speak about walled cities. So therefore, the question of the Gemara is, why do you do every single year on the 15th for walled cities? Maybe Behemet, I wouldn't do it at all. So obviously the Gemara is going to say, we're not going to do that, right? Or, but maybe, but one second, I'm going to ask you a question. In Shushan, did they do it on the 14th that year? Ken. That was the Ira Bira. Did they do the 14th that year? Yes. They did on the 14th. She added an extra day. She did it on the 15th as well. So therefore the question is so the question is going to be, what do we do on the future? So on the future, no, because if you do in the future, then you have to do 14 and 15. That year, she did what?
The question was explaining that year.
Yes.
Was what it was. And she said, from moving forward, we adding.
She said that.
I think so.
Where's that written in the Megillah? I don't have that. In my Megillah, I've got 14 and 15 for the Idum Arem Kufalin, and I got 14 for everyone else. But the Megillah says from now on, you always do 14. It doesn't speak about 15. 15 was done for Shushan because they were given an extra day. But they also did 14. So if I want to go to Shushan, I'm going to say it's always 14 and 15. So we have to find out what's going to happen in the future. So therefore, what we're asking is, how do we know that it's only the 15th for walled cities? So the Gemara says, if the 14 is going to be for spread out cities, 15 is Mukafot Choma. So the Gemara says, maybe Mukafot Choma don't do it at all. So the Gemara asks two questions. First of all, they're Jews. Second of all, Hoduvat Kush. So the Gemara says, no. I'm going to say that just like it was in the Megillah, 14th is for regular cities. And the Mukafot Choma, both. Why? Kirichtiv, as it says, Liot osim et yom 14 lechodesh Adar ve'et yom 15 b'chol shana v'shana, which is the extra day. So I would do 2 days. So says, and by the way, that's the finishing of the question. Meaning right there, right before the words ihava. Everyone sees the words ihava. It's 2 lines up from what gets wide on the end of the word, of the end of the line. It says ihava. Right before ihava, that's where goes the question mark. If it was, right? Everyone sees the words ihava. Ihava, lifne ihava, there's a siman shela. Which one? No, that's the answer. Right? Right before is the siman shela. Before ihava, you put a siman shela. יש לך את זה או לא? עוד פעם. לפני ihava, תשים siman shela. How did I know that there's a question mark there, doctor? How did I know that there's a question mark there?
Because you're saying the ihava.
No, so ihava is an answer that I'm coming and saying it, but the truth is, Rashi already tells you, kirichtiv liot osim, right? Rashi tells you, maskana de kushiahi velo tireutzahu. Many times, right? It's in the middle of the page. No, not the middle of the page. It's 3 lines up of Rashi, kirichtiv liot osim. Everyone sees kirichtiv liot osim? It's the last word on the line. It says kirichtiv.
Next to Agaot.
Right, exactly. Right to the gra. Right beside the gra. Kirichtiv liot osim maskana de kushiahi velo tirutzahi. Right? What does that mean? It's the maskana of the kushia, meaning like this. I'm going to explain to you like follows. Many times I could ask you a question, right? And after asking you a question, I'm going to tell you kirichtiv, like it's written. No. Many times a kirichtiv, like it's written in the pasuk or it's written somewhere, I just answered you. But here, Rashi is telling you it's not an answer. It's the end of the question, meaning the exact opposite. I'm asking from the pasuk the question still. Kirichtiv, since it says in the pasuk 14, 15, just like in the time of the Megillah, they did do it on the 14th and 15th. So too, you should always do on the 14th and 15th. So therefore, the kirichtiv over there is part of the question. So let's read the question again.
Yeah, so why Rashi said...
What?
רגע, אני will ask you, obviously. מסקנה דקושייה היא ולא תירוץ היא.
Exactly.
רגע, מה הכוונה? מה ההבדל בין מסקנה שזה תכלס תשובה?
No, maskana is the end. It's the maskana dekushyahi. It's the end of a question, and it's not an answer.
רגע, it's very interesting, because in Hebrew, let's speak for Hebrew.
It's the same thing. Conclusion מסקנה זה conclusion.
הוא אומר לך, כן, זו המסקנה.
נכון.
זאת אומרת, במילים אחרות, זה התשובה, זה המסקנה שלו.
נכון. זה המסקנה של השאלה. מסקנה, זה מה שהוא אומר, מסקנה דקושיה, it's the conclusion of the question, right? מסקנה is the final point, so it's the final point of the question, and it's not, זה לא תשובה לשאלה, okay? So he comes and he says, right, let's read the Gemara again, על כן היהודים הפרזים היושבים בערי פרזות, מדי פרזים ב-14 מוקפים 15, so we made a diuk from the fact that the prazim is going to be on the 14th, מוקפים חומה is going to be 15. Asks the Gemara, so beforehand was a diuk, was like a statement, right? So asks the Gemara, ve'ema prazim ב-14 mukafin kal ukal lo, question mark. Answers the Gemara with a question. Remember, good Jews always answer a question with another question. Ve'lav Yisraelinu, says the Gemara, what? They're not Jews, right? Ve'od, and furthermore, he comes and he says, right? And furthermore, he comes and he says, Ve'od uvad kush ktiv. Yeah, it's Ve'od uvad kush. So says the Gemara, no, you're right. Ve'ema, so maybe I'm going to say, Prazim bar beisar, mukafim bar beisar uva chameisar, kidiktiv, like it's written in the pasuk. So this is the end of the question. Answers the Gemara, ihava ketiv, if it was written in the pasuk, et yomar ba'asar v'chamisha asar, if it was written in the pasuk, the 14th and the 15th, kedeka marta, it's exactly the way that you said it. But hashta dichtiv, but now that it's written, et yom arba asar ve'et yom chamisha asar. So now that it's written et ve'et, it's written et and et. Ata et upasik. Comes the et and makes a pasek. What's the pasek? Hane be'arba asar ve'hane be'chamisha asar. This ones are going to be in the 14th, and this one is going to be on the 15th. Okay, we're going to stop here, put a dot here, right? Even though we didn't finish, but because obviously there's going to be a continuation, but just we're going to stop here and then we're going to continue with Zat Hashem tomorrow.
Let's go to Chumash a little bit, teach us about this. If in Chumash,
It's not, don't